You are ready to go.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Gene Coltos, presiding member for today's meeting, and I declare the meeting open at 9:30 a.m. And in doing so, I acknowledge we are hosting this meeting on the traditional land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. We acknowledge the Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of Western Australia, pay respect to elders past and present, and the ongoing connection between people, land, waters and community. The meeting will be run in accordance with DAP Standing Orders 2024 under the Planning and Development Act Regulations 2011. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the DAP website in accordance with Regulation 42A of the Planning and Development Assessment Panel's Regulations 2011, and members are reminded to announce their name and title prior to speaking. Panel members may refer to technical devices through the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. And at today's meeting with me is Karen Hyde, Deputy Presiding Member, Mike Morris, Specialist Member, Councillor Mark Jones, City of Rockingham, and Councillor Dawn Jex from the City of Rockingham. Item 2, apologies, Councillor Lorna Buchan from City of Rockingham. B members on leave of absence, there are none. And item 4, noting of previous minutes of the meetings on the DAP website. Now we'll move on to part B of the agenda for the City of Rockingham. We have officers present, Mr. Parlane and David Waller. We do have a submission or 2 submissions coming up today. For item 3.1 will be Ben Doyle. Item 1 on the agenda is declaration of due consideration. Can I ask all panel members to indicate that they've duly considered all documentation within part B of the agenda and part B related information? That's good, thank you all. Item 2, disclosures of interest. Councillor Jones has an impartiality interest. It's a standard council declaration, and he has approval to sit and participate and vote on the items. Approved by the DAP Executive Director. Councillor Jex has a similar impartiality interest for both items, standard council declaration, and I give her approval to sit and participate fully on the agenda. Do any members have additional declarations of interest? If not, we'll move on to item 3.1 of the agenda for proposed fast food outlet at lot 9021 Furnival Parade, Baldivis. And we have a presenter in Mr. Ben Doyle, Planning Solutions. Mr. Doyle. Yeah. Please make your presentation.
Thank you very much, Presiding Member. As you may be aware, this presentation was to be done by Abby Goodall from our office. Unfortunately, she fell ill yesterday, so I have had to rapidly educate myself and hopefully can address the points as necessary. This is an important project for our client, and I felt it was important for someone to be here to answer any questions if you have any. As you said, Presiding Member, this is an application for a McDonald's restaurant neighbourhood centre. For that site, there was a structure plan approved back in 2013, which zoned the land as commercial and designated it for a neighbourhood centre. There was a development application approved in 2023 for the substantive centre. Also an indicative pad site location for this fast food outlet as now proposed. There was also a local development plan approved in 2024, which shows a building footprint and land use exactly as we are proposing. So all that's to say, there's been extensive planning over a decade leading towards this application. The RAR you have is comprehensive. The city's assessment has been diligent and thorough. The RAR addresses the public submissions and the referral agency comments. and we feel that they have been properly addressed in that content. The RAR was presented to the city's planning and council meeting for endorsement, and I understand was unanimously endorsed. So I trust on that basis that you have the information required. I don't intend to take up your time unnecessarily. If you have any questions, I'll be very pleased to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Panel members, any questions of Mr. Doyle?
I've got a question. So I note that the plans have now got on them removing the shade sails from the central parking aisle within the eastern car park and replacing them with trees.
Yes.
And I just wanted to ask, I'm just curious, I'm always interested in tree canopy and shade and all this sort of thing. So I'm just curious, in terms of trees, you know, what sort of size are they normally? Would they be an advanced specimen? I guess what I'm worried, what I'm asking about, just my own education, I guess, as well. You know, planting trees, there's sorts of outcomes, and just asking, are they going to be advanced specimens? And is there a plan to make sure that they survive and thrive?
In terms of surviving and thriving, given that they are on the landscape plan, and the development application plan, and that there'll be a condition requiring the landscaping plan, then yes, they will be. That will be a statutory requirement, and they will need to be maintained.
Any idea of what sort of size it usually goes in?
I am just looking for the landscape plan, which did accompany the application. And that, I recall, does indicate the species and planting. Bear with me to locate that.
If you like, we can defer to the city staff at some stage because they would know.
That may be helpful.
They would know that off the top of their head. I just wanted to know. I've got the opportunity to ask questions, and I just wanted to for the public.
Here we are. Found it. So the landscape plan does include recommended pot sizes for the various species. So it will be, I expect, implemented in accordance with those.
Okay, thank you.
96 of origin.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions?
Just wanted to check, if I may, Presiding Member Karen Hyde speaking. I think in the written submission for this presentation, you were comfortable with all the conditions of approval. Just checking that's the case.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Ben. If you just wait, I have queries again. If anyone has questions of the council staff, members? Yes, Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member, and those presenting. I really guess it relates to health and wellbeing. The city staff have previously addressed this, but I was just going over the submissions again, and the Education Department and the council had issues about unhealthy food outlets, and it goes back to the WA Government Sustainable Health Review in 2019, and just wonder if there's any further work since then looking at changing any of the planning laws to look at health or numbers of food outlets that are healthy options.
That's a question addressed to the city officers.
Yeah. Yes, Chris.
Right, I can respond to that if you like. Yes, certainly in terms of the Department of Education submission, there's concerns about the proximity of the school to the fast food outlet. We need to remember we've been through a substantial previous strategic and statutory planning processes to arrive at the situation we're at today, where the local planning framework actually encourages the provision of fast food outlets in this particular location and proximity to the school. The location of the school was a matter that was dealt with at the structured planning stage, I would imagine the department would have been aware of the implications of zoning the site commercial and the range of potentially permissible land uses, including fast food outlets that could have occurred at that particular point in time. With regard to this application and I guess the impacts on human health, again, we need to be mindful that the local planning framework provides for fast food outlets and a drive-through configuration in this location on the site. So I guess knocking this application back on the basis of adverse human health impact is not going to have any implication in regards to human health in the sense that there is the scope for other fast food outlets to operate from this particular site. There's also been numerous other DAP applications which have had to deal with this issue. I think Albany was one example that comes to mind, which have been more contentious than this application, whereby adverse human health impacts have not been considered to be relevant planning considerations.
Thank you, Chris. Further questions?
So just presiding member, just to clarify, so there's been no change in any health or WA planning laws since 2019 regarding unhealthy food options close to schools or anything like that? Is that a...
No, not as far as we're aware. And to be honest, if it did become a significant issue, it's a matter that's more appropriately dealt with by the state government as a whole state government approach, rather than ad hoc decision making.
No, thank you for the response. I was just clarifying, make sure. As I know it's just been 10 years of planning. It is a discretionary land use, so it's not an automatic, but I realise there's the structure plans and LDPs which have gone ahead, but things do change. And I guess that the community sentiment, which I guess we have to listen to, is, you know, there's a lot of people not in favour of fast food outlets, especially near a school. So thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions?
Maybe I can, respond to Councillor Jett's question in regards to landscaping.
Yes, go right ahead, Chris.
The city in its assessment has identified a few areas, minor areas, where the landscaping plan does need to be upgraded. So hence the condition that's in there requiring a revised landscaping plan. Once the revised landscaping plan is submitted, the city will then obviously evaluate the plant sizes appropriate to the role they play in delivering the landscaping outcome, and will ensure that an appropriate outcome is delivered. And also just go back to the question in regards to the shade sails within the main car park of the shopping centre being swapped out for trees. That was dealt with as a part of a previous amendment to the development application for the shopping centre proper that had been originally approved by the DAP and conditioned.
Thanks, Chris. Mike.
Mike Moritz, I just have a question to the officers with respect to whether or not you are satisfied that the fact that both this facility and the service station essentially back onto the streets, if you like, and from a crime prevention through environmental design, that's been considered as adequately through that assessment of the landscaping design. Because I'm not a fan of the LDP, but that's been in place for some time, and the structure plan, because it does turn everything on its back in terms of the surrounding streets. But just wondering about the crime prevention through environmental design aspects of what's been presented here.
Yeah, sure. The LDP treats the street interface of the fast food outlet as secondary frontage, and there are requirements in the LDP for it to be appropriately treated to interact with the public domain. So to that extent, there's openings that have been provided in the eastern elevation. There has been architectural features incorporated with regard to some of the building elements, break up the monotony of otherwise a blank wall proceeding to the street, which also works in combination with the landscaping strategy, which includes, I believe, a tiered landscaping arrangement, along with some feature elements with regard to low walls and panelling and so forth, which collectively, I think, mean that the development responds appropriately to public domain, but also the positioning of the openings in the buildings and the general design of the built form has been designed with the intent to minimise entrapment and other elements associated with potential antisocial behaviour.
Thank you.
Thank you. Karen, do you have
Thank you.
a question?
Karen Hyde speaking. Thank you. Just a couple of questions regarding the conditions. Condition 7, Roman numeral 5, speaks to all matters above being complied with for the duration of the development. Is there any risk that that could get complicated if the Australian standards change or anything of that nature? Have you had experience of these things becoming unstuck in the future where we're rigorously trying to stick to a standard which might be updated?
Sure. I guess we need to be mindful in the future that we're dealing with an application that is that falls under the current relevant Australian standards. So if the standard changes in the future, I think we would still, because basically what we're talking about is line marking the carbos. There's low to no risk associated with issues arising down the track.
Okay, lovely, thank you. And just, we do have 2 applications in front of us today, and both RARs prepared by yourself. So there's some slight differences between the way that they've been constructed. And I just wondered, obviously the signage for this particular development is taken into account as per the plans that have been presented to us. But on the other application, there's a little advice note about needing a sign permit. And I just wondered, was that relevant to this one? It's an advice note on the other, that a sign permit must be obtained for any advertising associated, etc. Is that something that's relevant to this, or is it not? Just wondered about the inconsistencies, that's all.
Yeah, sure. Both reports have been prepared by separate officers. But nevertheless, the situation with signage at the city is we're currently sort of moving towards rescinding a current local law to simplify the whole signage framework. The advice note on the other item, I think, has been constructed with that local law in mind. So whether it remains or not is probably immaterial, but in respect to consistency, I guess we would understand and appreciate whatever the DA's preference was.
Yeah, okay. Do you think it's necessary to add it as an advice note on this one?
Well, technically, it talks about a signed permit. So technically, as the law stands, there's probably consistency reasons benefit in including it in this one as well.
Yep, all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Zoning member.
Councillor Jones?
Yeah, just on the signage, comparing this to the other application, I think they're looking at a 9-metre pylon sign for this current application, where the other one's 7 metres. So do the city staff have anything above 6 metres requires sort of approval? Is there a standard height for neighbourhood shopping centres?
Yeah, sure. The current local planning policy in respect to advertising provides for higher pylon or model signs in this case in local neighbourhood and district centres. Both applications through the assessment process have given due regard to the impact of proposed signage on the other sites. So collectively, with regard to signage clutter and issues of that nature, we're talking about Narn Drive as well, which is when these passed on the opposite side of Narn Drive's development have also a commercial character. So collectively, I think it would be fair to say both reports conclude that the size of the relevant signs can be supported on Narn Drive for both applications.
Okay, but there's an inconsistency in height. So this one's 9 and the other one's 7.
So the city's obviously responded to the application for which approval has been sought. So a 7-metre sign was applied for on the other one. A 9-metre sign has been applied for on this one. and both are being assessed on merit.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
They're not out of context with other McDonald's and approvals that have been granted either.
Okay.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Further questions of the staff? If not, we will now move into discussion on the item. And do so, I'll need a mover for the responsible authority recommendation. Do I have a mover, please? Yes, move Mr. Moritz. Seconder, Councillor Jex. Yes, Mr. Moritz, would you like to speak to the item?
It's clear that the application has been thoroughly assessed, and my misgivings around the landscaping, etc., have been answered adequately, and I'm happy to support the proposal and the recommendations as suggested.
Thank you. Councillor Jex is seconder.
Yes, look, it was a thorough report. I'm happy with the report. I just want to make a couple of comments for the public record. I note that there was a total of 73 public submissions were received, and 71 of those were opposed. And the need, and whilst it's not a valid planning consideration, I still want to verbalise it. So the most prevalent concern raised in the objections received was 78%, because that was around need. Again, I acknowledge it's not a valid planning consideration. And also, in terms of the proximity to the school, it's 100 metres away from a primary school, and so I just want to mention that, and the other bit, well, that was it. Just that I just wanted to verbalise those things, that people are concerned, and it feeds into what Councillor Jones is saying, and it feeds into the whole notion that we've got to deal with what we've got now, but the systems certainly have room for improvement to reflect what people want these days and what's expected as a society. So that's my comments. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Jones, do you wish to speak to the item at all?
Yeah, thank you, presiding member. Yeah, just echo Councillor Jex's comments regarding that health and wellbeing closest to a school. So I guess, yeah, there's no current planning framework or laws to prohibit it. There's been a lot of previous planning work. So I guess it's really just to acknowledge that. So not totally satisfied that the state's doing enough to address that, but it's sort of outside the scope of this application. So I'll support the application as recommended. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen, do you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, presiding member. I'm comfortable with this application. Likewise, as per the elected members, I do note the objections and the content of those objections. However, I'm satisfied that matters around placement of various land uses have been considered through the lengthy process that has taken place for this development and this area through the planning process. It's consistent with the scheme, the structure plan. The nearest nearest housing is some distance away. The city's satisfied with the traffic impact analysis. It complies largely with the LDP in terms of its location, the building facades and the landscape, etc. And note that some improvements to landscape are to be made through the conditions of approval. It is a discretionary use, but the discretion being sought is very small. That's a 5-bay parking shortfall, which is minor, and considering reciprocity, I think that can be managed adequately. So I'm happy to support it. I would, however, just flag an amending motion, which is just for consistency's sake to add an advice note. Worded, a signed permit must be obtained for any advertising associated with the development, the applicant to liaise with the city's building services in this regard.
Okay, thank you. I'll deal with the amending motion. Do I have a seconder? Mr. Moritz, do you wish to discuss it further or just put it?
No, happy, thank
Anyone
you.
wish to discuss the amending motion?
Can I ask for the city officers to be able to make comment?
I think they just did a little while ago, but they didn't have an issue with it. But go ahead, Chris. Are you happy with the?
Just so I'm clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. With regard to the amending motion we're talking about. Yeah. No, the city's got no objection to that.
Yes, the advice note that you mentioned.
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
we're fine with that.
All right, okay, thank you, councillor. All right, well, I'll put the amending motion if there's no further discussion on it. All those in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. Okay, getting back to the item.
Nothing more to say other than I'm happy to support with those conditions in advance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Karen, you mentioned a lot of the things that I was going to mention as well in terms of the application. Everyone agrees it's been thoroughly assessed. There were no objections from the Department of Planning. Noted the objection from the Education Department. However, that's been covered as far as the submissions made and response from the council staff. All of the planning assessment that was provided to us to inform our decision indicates, and it's a thorough assessment, all the issues associated with landscaping, the local structure plan, built form, parking provision and the shortfall discretion required. I think that's all okay. And therefore I'm supporting the recommendation with the amendment that we've just voted on. That being the case, I'll put it back to Mr. Moritz to close debate on the item.
I have nothing further.
Okay, fine. All right, well, with that, I'll put the item as recommended with the amendment. All those in favour? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Okay, thank you, Doyle, for your presentation. Now move on to item 3.2 on the agenda, which is for a service station on the same lot as we've just been discussing. And we do have a presenter here. Mr. Martinovich is going to make a presentation. And we have also Mr. Sheldrick from Rockingham Park available to answer any questions. Mr. Martinovich, please.
Yes, good morning and thank you for the opportunity to present. CLE Town Planning and Design is the applicant for the proposed service station and has been assisting the landowner progress the planning and design of the Parkland Heights Neighbourhood Centre for the past several years. We fully support the RAR recommendation for approval and thank the City for their work and efforts progressing the application to this point. Parkland Heights Neighbourhood Centre has been carefully planned towards delivering a Main Street activity centre that responds to its context and catchment. Development of the centre is coordinated by a detailed local development plan, which the proposed service station layout and design is entirely consistent. The land use and layout of this pad site as a service station has long been contemplated and is integrated within the broader layout and movement network of the centre. Whilst our position is one of support for the approval recommendation, we do request that Condition 6 of the RAR be amended. As worded, Condition 6 would require the complete removal of the price board sign on Furnival Parade, which is on the northern boundary of the site. Rather than the removal of the sign, we request that it be retained, but with a reduced height of 4 metres as compared to the previously proposed 7 metres. In reviewing the city's policy position, as outlined in the RAR, we understand that the scale and potential visual impact of a 7 metre sign is a key factor in the recommendation for it to be removed. To address these concerns, we propose to modify the sign from 7 to 4 metres, substantially reducing its height and therefore its potential visual impact. The clear display of fuel prices is a statutory requirement for service stations, with fuel prices needing to be clearly legible to passing motorists. Nan Drive, which abuts the eastern boundary of the site, is the primary north-south integrator road in the locality and is therefore the logical location to display the primary fuel price board. However, given that sign's orientation and the sloping topography of the site, the sign on Nan Drive won't be clearly visible to traffic on Furnival Parade to the north, hence the proposal for the secondary sign. Reducing the height to 4 metres will assist limit its visibility from the surrounding locality other than along the eastern section of Furnival Parade as per its intended purpose. In terms of potential impact on surrounding residents, the residential lots fronting Furnival Parade on the opposite side of the road remain in the ownership of the proponent and the landowner for this application, being Rockingham Park. This is a deliberate strategy to ensure that prospective purchasers and future landowners are fully aware of the approved commercial layout and land use within the centre prior to purchasing. The sign therefore will not have an unexpected impact on amenity for the adjoining property owners, as there are none. The reduced height of 4 metres is proposed as a suitable balance between the requirement for clearly legible to passing motorists without unduly impacting the future amenity of residents. Thank you for the opportunity to present this morning, and myself or Johnny Sheldrick, who is attending as the proponent, would be pleased to assist with any questions from the DAP.
Thank you. Panel members, any questions of Mr. Martinovich? If not, in light of what Mr. Martinovich has said, do anyone wish to request council staff position on it?
Yes, please.
Yes, Councillor Jeggs. Elaine, would you like to respond to the request on the sign?
Yeah, look, the city's primary concern in relation to, I guess, the pylon sign to the Northern Road was in the context of the residential lots across the street. Also having regard to the monolith sign approved under the shopping centre approval already. Yeah, so we thought in the context of that residential amenity, the sign would be, a 7 metre sign was just too high in that context. The proponents' alternative recommendation for a reduced sign, acknowledging sign pricing is a requirement under separate legislation. We're okay with the 4 metre sign, subject to a slight tweak to the wording to make sure that it's accommodated fully within the site. From the site plan, it just looks like it's slightly over the boundary. It's hard to determine exactly where it sits. So if we can add some wording to that condition to just ensure it's fully contained within the site, and we think a lower sign is going to probably less have an impact on the amenity of those neighbours across the street.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Karen?
Yes, please. Thank you. Karen Hyde speaking. Just looking at condition 7, which talks about the acoustic report. I don't see a condition, excuse me, that suggests that acoustic report be adhered to for the duration, or at least the development is consistent with that. And again, noting from previous RARs that the city has prepared, you've occasionally had wording along the lines of prior to occupation development written confirmation to be provided that demonstrates that all requirements indicated in the acoustic report referenced in that condition have been incorporated into the development. Would you see that being advantageous to add to this set of conditions?
I think so. Just for, I'm assuming it's in the other JDAP report as well. For the...
Yes, indeed. Which is yes.
I think it would be advantageous to add for the duration of the development. So probably condition 14.
Thank you. And there were some concerns, I think, from the community regarding those as well. So I think that would assist.
I think in terms of proximity, especially nighttime hours in relation to those residents to the north. Yeah.
Yes. So in that respect, just as a follow on, would your preference be that a condition of that nature would follow from condition 7, and then we could renumber all the others? Would that be the logical approach? Rather than it being a completely new condition, just
yeah, either condition 7 or 14, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That was all I think I had a question regarding.
Okay. Just on that, condition 14 does tend to relate to that. Do you see that as being different?
Oh, maybe that's, oh no, sorry, I might have overlooked that then. Okay, yeah, so you've got 14 there. All right, okay. Yeah, all right, thank you.
Okay, we can discuss that further.
That's all right. I think I'm
all right, thank you. Any further questions of the staff? If Not? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Daniel. We may get back to you later, but in the meantime, now that we've had the presentations and questions answered, we move now to the item itself, and in order that we may commence discussion on it, I will need a mover and a seconder. So do I have a mover for the RA? Recommendations? Karen Hyde moved. Seconded.
Second.
Mr. Moritz, thank you very much. Karen used to speak to the item.
Yes, thank you, presiding member. I think the responsible authority report is very clear. This development has been thoroughly assessed. I note that the land use is consistent with the planning scheme, with the structure plan, again, with the LDP. It is a discretionary use, but limited variations are requested of us. I did note with interest that the city had engaged a peer review to look at the air quality monitoring and modelling, and that they were satisfied with the outcome of that peer review. And indeed, this development includes level 1 and level 2 technology to deal with emissions. The referral bodies have been satisfied, I think, and there are a number of other conditions which I think will help to manage and control the development. And I thank the presiding member for drawing my attention to condition 14. So in that regard, I don't have any amending motions that I wish to make as part of that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Moritz used to speak to the item.
Thank you very much. Mike Moritz speaking. Yeah, look, I'm very satisfied that the project's been thoroughly assessed through the report process by the council, and that the proposal is generally consistent with the structure plan and the LDP. So I'm happy to support the proposal.
Thank you. Other panel members wish to speak to the item? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, just thank the applicant and the staff for the assessment, thorough assessment. I just concur, agree with the application and support it, and quite satisfied that the vapour recovery systems 1 and 2 will be implemented and monitored as well. So that just, regarding benzene and those emissions as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jicks.
Just a couple of comments. I just wanted to note that both the Department of Health and the Department of Education do not support the proposal. I just wanted to put on the public record, and of course the guidance statement is quite old, but again this complies with the guidance statement and all the planning requirements. So I don't have any objection to it. I just wanted. Are we going to deal with there's a
Sign.
after?
Sorry.
I just wanted to ask about the condition 6.
Regarding the sign.
The sign.
Yes, well, I was waiting if anyone wished to do that. Otherwise, yes, you can do an amending motion for that.
Well, just in following up from what the staff talked about, because they've got a better picture than me.
Yep.
And so in terms of the wording around that, I'd seek their advice as to what sort of wording. Because at the moment, we've got condition 6, prior to applying for a building permit, revised plan should be provided demonstrating that the burnable blade on the sign has been removed, and the officers had a suggestion as to what we could do there. Around keeping the sign, reducing it to 4 metres, I believe, and making sure that it's within the footprint of the site area. Can I check with the officers in terms of wording?
Yes, thank
Does
you.
it cover that?
Yep, to suggest some wording, we'd suggest these additional words that lead on from the suggested wording. The words will be "and located within the site boundaries." So it will read, prior to applying for a building permit, revised plans should be provided demonstrating that the Furnival Parade monolith sign is a maximum height of 4 metres and located within the site boundaries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And with that wording, do you wish to do an amending motion to change the wording for condition 6?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right. Well, you've moved that. Everyone's satisfied. Karen will second it. Everyone satisfied with the proposed wording? If you are, and there's no further discussion on it, I'll put that item to amend condition 6. All in favour? That's unanimous. Okay, councillor Jex, you wish to keep anything further on the item?
Nothing further to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Everyone's spoken. Right, well, I too support the proposal. I note the objections about the number of existing service stations, access to the site and proximity to the primary school, and the objections of the Education Department and Department of Health. All those issues are covered in the planning assessments in terms of separation distances to sensitive land uses, and the peer review was supportive of the proposal as well. And the modelling demonstrates emissions are likely to comply with current air quality standards. The condition 6, remember the pylon sign we have dealt with. And in terms of the further issues on the planning assessment with building facades, vehicle access, landscape in the form of development, and the parking provision, we have dealt with that, and the responsible authority report deals with that in detail, and therefore I will also be supporting the proposal. That being the case, Karen is the mover. Would you like to close debate on the item?
Thank you. Happy with everybody's contribution to this, and continue to support, particularly with the amendment to condition 6 that we've made, because I do note that there is a topographical change in the site, and therefore visibility could be obscured if there were a single sign. So 2 signs and one of them being lower, I think, is an appropriate outcome. So with that amendment, I'm happy to support and close debate.
Okay, thank you. That being the case, I will put the recommendation as published with the amendment to condition 6. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, presenters, council staff as well. Next item on the agenda we'll move to is item 4, Form 2 DAP applications. There are none. Item 5, Section 31 SAT reconsiderations. There are none. Part C, other business. SAT applications and Supreme Court appeals to the DAP. They are all listed. And item 2 on Part C is the meeting closure. I'll close the meeting at 10:13 a.m. and thank everybody for their participation. Thank you, and see you next time. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.